Hi guys, welcome to this video. In this video we discuss question number 1 of the exam. Which one of the following best describes what the passage is trying to do? So if you look at the answer options, it questions an explanation, corrects a misconception, critiques a methodology, explores some myths. So this question type is a combination of two things. Which are those two things? It talks about the main idea of the passage, and it also talks about the primary purpose of the passage. So these are two things that the question is doing in this particular case. Now if we look at these lines from the passage, these are pivotal for identifying what the passage is trying to do. Given such a long history of human map making, it is perhaps surprising that it is only within the last few hundred years that North has been considered to be at the top. In fact, for much of human history, North almost never appeared at the top. So he's actually trying to clear out this particular fact in the passage, that how did North not appear at the top of maps, right? Remember, the passage is about maps. It explains the fact that North has actually never been at the top, right? So obviously when we think about maps, the first thing that we think about maps is that North is going to be placed at the top. Now this is something which has not happened in the past, and the author's primary purpose in this case is to explain to us that why did North not appear at the top. The Christians had their reasons, the Islamic cultures had their reasons, the Egyptians had their reasons, right? The Chinese got it right, but they got it right for the wrong reason, right? That is what the passage explains to us, right? So their way of getting the map right was actually not a valid reason for getting it right. So that is what the passage does. So the passage's role in this particular case is it corrects a misconception about the way maps are designed. So what was happening in the past, right? How maps were designed, how did we get North wrong at the past? It is clarifying that particular aspect. It is clarifying that misconception about maps that we have. Now if you look at the other options, option number A says it questions an explanation about how maps are designed. There is no one single explanation which has been questioned in the passage, right, about how maps are designed. Just assume an answer option to be correct and then try to figure out, does this correlate with the passage? So that is how you eliminate options. It critiques a methodology used to create maps on similar grounds. Does it critique one single method of how maps were created? It does not do that. It picks up different ways of map creation, finds faults with a lot of those methods. It finds fault with Columbus's method, it finds fault with the Chinese method. So it picks up different ways in which maps were created, right? Now option number D, it explores some myths about maps. Now what would these myths stand for? These myths would basically be things or statements which are considered about maps which are probably not valid, which are probably false. These are stories about maps, things about maps which might not necessarily be true. Is he explaining any one of these things? No, he is not. He's just explaining one thing about maps, that how did we get them? How did we get them wrong, right? We got them wrong. He explains this particular facet, right? That is what he's explaining in this particular case. He's clearing out the misconception about maps that we have. North has not always been at the top. This is the misconception that is being clarified in the question. Is this an easy question to solve in the given situation? When you are facing a timer, this is not an easy question to solve, right? The answer options are not written with a lot of clarity, so there will always be a degree of confusion with this particular question. So if you get this right, it's a good question that you've solved correctly, right? So do remember that. Hopefully so you've understood how to analyze this particular question and you've understood the reasoning behind this question, right? Thank you very much for watching this video and happy learning.